Wow. I am so grateful to see a lot of my friends here, people here in this community, and people who just I don't know yet, but I get to meet for the very first time with bringing my very best to share with you. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen Shakti, and my husband Brandon is back there, and we currently live in Long Beach, California, but our hearts are of the desert. And ever since we met, which was actually a story of connecting in the desert through land that we have out in Lucerne Valley, that was kind of part of our love story. Brandon was looking for a place to have a birthday party, and this beautiful raw piece of land that overlooks the valley that has just beautiful plant life and is just so still and quiet. We had a little camp out there because that's about all you can do with raw land in the desert these days. But that night, and we were looking out at the valley and all the little lights, and I just said, "Oh, happy birthday, friend." And I just had this little feeling that I got back, and it was like, oh, wow, okay. I don't know what to do with that. And we kind of just let that rest for about 4 years. And, after all of that time passed, and then we finally were able to be at that place in our lives where we could make a connection and be in the desert and be partners. We know that the land helped to bring us together. So the name of this series, Desert Heart, really relates to that, because as we've gone and we have that little place where we can just sit for a while and notice the details and know that we're not going to be disturbed or we're not in anyone else's way. A number of these paintings, the reference photographs that I took are directly from the land. So Under the Juniper and the Ladybug's Picnic were from the land. This yucca blossom, it was from the land. And some of the others are from here in Tecopa and just other places that I've traveled in the desert. So my love of the desert started when I was very young. My father, that was a place where he would go to retreat and I think be able to just decompress and really hear himself. And he was a Vietnam veteran, so at the time when I was a child, I didn't know the degree of PTSD that he was dealing with. So we would go camping out in the desert, and we would go for these wonderful night hikes with our flashlight and looking for lizards and bats, and we would just be out there for a good long period of the weekend. And then we would go back to the city, and every time he would go to the desert, I'd be like, "Dad, I've got to go. Can I go with you?" And we had this little trail bike where we would go and we would explore, but we only had one. So after I grew to a certain age, we wouldn't both fit on that bike anymore, so we'd take turns. So he would go out and he'd be gone for an hour or two exploring, and I would just be there by myself, sitting in the desert, just with the desert. And I feel that that's really where the desert picked me up to hold me. And I can remember those times, and it was just the sound of the wind moving through the manzanita trees and the smell. I remember one time where some of the sheep that would graze on the land out there would just come through my camp. All of a sudden I'm sitting there, and then there's just like sheep everywhere. It was just wild. So these experiences made a huge impact on me, and I'm sure that many of you have had things like this happen for you, which is kind of like why we're all here in this beautiful place, Tecopa. So this is just a continuation of the love story between myself and the desert. So that is why I called this show Desert Heart. I like wordplay too, so that just happened to work out well. But when we come out to these places and get really quiet, that's when nature speaks. And it's that, because we're quiet, we can hear what nature has to say. It's a powerful pulse of life. And when the cell phones are gone and that psychic chatter of other people is gone, the colors start to pop out, and you see a stone and you pick that up, and that just becomes a world upon world in the patterns in the stone. So I'll tell a story of the ladybug's picnic. So we were on the land, and it was in the spring when all the wildflowers were blooming, and it was Brandon who saw this, and he's like, "Come and look at this." And so the flower is the Actins and Celia, and it grows all over the hillside. And wherever there was a flower bud that had lost its petals, there was a little ladybug sitting on it. And it was only the flower buds that had no petals, and they were just all over the hill. And that just caught me by, it was just charming to me, because it made me think, it's like a little ladybug apartment complex. And for all the information that's out there on the internet, I have not yet found why they do that. And it was just so special to me, because I had to be there at that point in time to notice that detail. And if I had just been driving by or taking a hike, I might not have seen that. And Ladybug Picnic, for those of you who are my generation, that was a little song on Sesame Street that I just loved, and it all just kind of came together. So part of the display is this video interactive portal where I've created, I believe there's 6 movies on there that show the beginning to end of 5 of these paintings. And one is, the one that's up right now is about our friend Paul Salmonfeld. So really worthwhile mentioning Paul, because he's the artist that created all these beautiful frames. So he's a wonderful visionary artist in his own right. And I'm just so grateful that we've been working together we've known each other over 20 years. And so I always want to give credit where credit's due, because they add so much to the paintings. And then, it becomes 2 pieces of art in one. So I always want to give a shout out to Paul in Wrightwood. So, yay, Paul. But let's see, what else can I tell you about myself? Well, another part of my connection to the earth and the desert is that I'm a practicing shaman. I'm a medicine woman, and I know many of you through my work with that, and there are other beautiful medicine people here. And so the heart of my practice is about grounding. So every day I bring my energy field and I connect it down deep into the earth. And as I've been doing that, my own healing journey has been evolving. And I think that that's pretty standard for anyone in the healing arts. Anyone who would consider themselves a light worker usually starts by doing their own personal healing work. And it's never done. It takes years and years. But after a while, again, a different kind of layer of details start to emerge. And I might also say, to describe myself, I'm kind of a spiritual cartographer, because in the shamanic philosophy, there is, and globally, we talk about these three worlds. Many different cultures can agree on this concept of the three worlds. So this world that we live in is what we call the middle world. And then the underworld, which is not like a hell like we would be, that's more from a Christian sense. The underworld in the shamanic traditions is a place of dreams. It is a place of, the unconscious, is a place where we can travel to get information that we can bring back for the good of helping and healing our community. As well, there's an upper world, which is like a really high, refined spiritual energy. And so that would be like the realm of the gods and the goddesses and the archetypal forces and some of our spirit guides. So without going into too much detail, how this relates is that these paintings are a representation of the dreaming of nature, and that the way that I'm a map maker through my journeys and meditations and my experiences is that these places that I've traveled and had these experiences, they then exist for me in my own internal mapscape. So I've dropped energetic pins by giving offerings in all of these places. And that's just a very simple, maybe it's I bring some flowers or I bring some tobacco. And my intention is to connect to the spirit of these places that I visit. And many of them are known sacred places, and the indigenous people of these places have identified these places of power for years and years and years. We're talking thousands of years. So I always come in honor and respect of them, those who have come before. And that small act of giving an offering and showing up and just being open, these things happen. And I get just to have a relationship with the land. And it's, this middle world. And let me give you an example. And maybe this will resonate with you. So let's say we're standing in a blank space, on a blank canvas, and there is a lens or like a porthole in front of us that we look through. And then there's one behind that. And then there's one behind that. And anywhere we turn, there's just an infinite amount of layers going up and down. And as we make that map, we can step into a space in between one and then open the door into a world. And that's kind of how I would describe like multiple dimensions. And once I drop a pin and I have an experience, as I go back and I'm doing, let's say, work with a client and I'm leading them through a journey, I can take them through my map. I can help them to build their own maps because there is information there that will be priceless in helping you to understand the layers of what you're ready to release. Because I feel that what is my motivation with my art, with my life, is simple. And I want to inspire people. I want to help bring greater beauty into the world. I want to inspire people in whatever small way that I can to just feel a little better. I think that that's so much of what we're all searching for. So there's many different ways to reach that, but I find that the life of a shaman and an artist is often very interwoven because there's a ability to really get into our own vision and share that with people. And it's such a valuable gift. And so when Amy gave me this opportunity and we first started to talk about the creation of this show, I was just, yes, full on. And so the creation of these works of art took about 1.5 years to do. And it was that was kind of a long shamanic journey all on its own, because I had to really wrangle my attention and my space and, say no to other things so that I could stick with the vision to bring these from the imaginal realm, whatever dimensional portal, that helped me to know, well, how am I going to make this composition? And wow, I don't know what the next painting's going to be. I better go out to the desert and just kind of go walking around with my camera, and it would always come. So there's this mystical component that all of us can access. And I feel that that's what I want to bring through with my desert paintings. So I feel if any of you have questions, or if something I said resonated, maybe we could just open it up to some Q&A. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. Thank you. I'm just so grateful. So, yeah, Miss Karen.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm really intrigued by the one that's right behind you and the experience that you witnessed with that. It's very mysterious but playful, but it feels like there's a before and an after, and so I'm curious about the story.
Yeah, so Celebrating Moisture is the title of this piece. And this actually is one that came from the imaginal realm. I wasn't in a place where I saw these little mice popping, but I've certainly experienced this moment in the desert when the storm is coming and you can smell the earth just turns up, like all the fragrant oils of the plants and the earth. As soon as that moisture hits it, there's a energy to that. So I've always found these little kangaroo rats just to be such sweet little spirits, and they're just like little lightning fast, so you don't always get to see them, like maybe they run across the road in front of your car. But I started thinking, well, what happens in their communities when it starts to rain? Because rain is such a big deal in the desert. All life depends on it, and it's so rare and precious. So without it being like a Disney animation, I wanted to express their excitement and kind of this communal, yay, like rain, this means that we're gonna thrive because grasses and flowers, and it will bring abundant food for them to continue their life. So just kind of this little hopping and popping little dance with the raindrops. That's what that one's about. And last night, me and Lisa and Julia and Brandon, we had a wonderful fire ceremony. And we were talking about this concept of childlike play, CPR, childlike play recovery. Yeah. So at this stage in my life and career, I've given myself permission to kind of get back into that childlike wonder. I've spent years, being a professional, and I've been a tattoo artist for 29 years this month, my official anniversary. And so there is a lot to that, and a lot of responsibility in running a business and just adulting, and that takes its toll. We've all kind of gone through that, right? So kind of turning back and getting into these more playful states and remembering that sweetness of childhood, like the song from Sesame Street, and, talking with animals and plants is a very childlike thing to do. And there's a lot of power that we get back, a lot of healing, a lot of juice that we get back from that. So I'm all about that. More, please. So I hope that answers your question. And as you're a dear friend, we get to play together. So more of that. Yeah. And like as I was telling Lori, we'll give a little plug for Super Bloom. I'm going to be coming out in April. Sarah Paz-Hyde is producing a wonderful event with the Desert Arts Collective, as well as Robin. And it's going to be a women's gathering, and we're just going to have a wonderful creative and healing time. We're going to dance. We're going to make art. We are, what am I missing?
We're going to get to play with drums and handpan.
Drums and handpan.
And food and sisters and
yeah.
The desert.
Yeah.
The hot springs and
yeah.
nature and
yeah.
relaxing.
Yes.
We don't do that a lot.
Yeah. So not to put you on the spot, but with a full room here of people who might be looking for an opportunity to be in the desert in the springtime, because it's going to be, I think, another super bloom, literally another super bloom. So just sharing a little news on that. Okay, any other questions?
Will it be April? You think it's going to wait till April?
It starts, a super bloom will start in Death Valley in mid to the third week of January and go all the way up through May 1st in Kingston. So it depends on the wind and the sun and how high you are.
And just to clarify that And just to clarify that the name of the event of the women's gathering is called the Super Bloom, but it's going to be happening during a year where we have an explosion of wildflowers. So good planning, ladies.
There are always flowers.
Yes.
It just depends on how big they are.
Yeah.
And if they're small, we're forced to go look for it.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
They're all good.
Yeah.
Instance, though, could be really cool.
Oh. All right. Any other questions or?
Yeah, you were saying that your art's very inspired by the lack of sound.
Yes.
I was wondering how you convey sound in your painting.
How do I convey sound? Well, I'll give you an example that I was exploring out in the desert by Amboy, out by the crater. And I was walking out there towards the crater, and the silence became so loud that it was like a buzz in my ears. And it took me a moment to realize that it was the lack of sound that I was experiencing, and I was having a visceral response to that. So I feel that when sound drops away, what comes to me is the color, and then the smells behind that. Because, often there's a breeze, and then that's carrying even the temperature. It's the scent of the earth or the sand or the dryness. So the palette of the desert has always been something that's so soothing to my soul. The roses and the beige brown and the purples and the blues and the shadows and that sagey green of the wildlife. And it's interesting to play with our senses in the desert, because it almost, the scale is so vast, it almost becomes unreal. I look out to the mountains here and I'm like, that just looks like a painted backdrop to me. But I mean, it's there. So I think that also helps to support that feeling of multidimensionality that is a little odd at times, but it puts you in that philosophical state of mind.
Tell them about Terry.
Oh, yeah.
Stars coming.
Okay. Yeah. I'll answer your question in just a moment. So I'll tell the story about this because Christy and Brad and Isabel, who's in Canada right now, we shared this experience together. So Brad was commuting to Las Vegas for a bit of time, and so this is in Charleston View, and every time 8:30 a.m. on the dot, he would see this tortoise on the side of the road. He could count on seeing this tortoise.
Months.
Yeah.
Week. Months. Every day. Same time. Check us out. There it was. Straight out of the desert. Boom.
Yeah.
You were there too, so, you know, you
Yeah.
both were on the spectrum.
I think so.
So we came out around Memorial Day, and Brad told us this, and he's all, "You want to go see the tortoise?" And I'm like, oh yeah. So we packed up, we had our coffee, and we headed out, and there he was. And so we were able to get out, and I was down on my belly with my camera, eye to eye with him, and I could feel a car coming a mile away. I could feel the vibration in my belly. And I felt it at the same time he felt it, and he turned around and he just went back out into the desert. So, and he was a big boy, you know, probably about 20. I mean, I didn't see if he was a boy or a girl, but we just called him Terry the tortoise, because we're goofy like that. But I mean, just the adaptability of this beautiful desert life, and he had that instinct for preservation, that he was not going to get hit by a car, because people look at that and they're like, oh no, like they think it's like a moment of danger, like slow down, don't hit the tortoise. But no, he's okay. He's probably still out there.
Right? He sees it coming a mile away.
And now he's a celebrity. Yeah. Okay. What was your question?
Well, Danny was asking you how the quiet influenced your art. And I think you're saying the diminution of one sense heightens the others.
Yes.
Blind people know this, and so do deaf people.
Yep. Exactly. So I think that, it's a wonderful gift that we get from the desert when we get ourselves out and go on a hike, and, any time of year there's something wonderful to find. And so it's just been a great honor to get to be a stronger part of this community through this show. And I'm just so very grateful to all of you who've made time and the effort to come and be out here, and just the love, the interest. I'm just so full. So if there's no other questions, we can get back to our party. Yay! Thank you. And just Happy New Year to all of us. All right. Yay.